Every time you sit down for a meal, you're trusting a system that you'll probably never see. Behind the scenes, in every single food processing plant, there's this constant, invisible battle being fought to keep what you eat safe. So let's dive into this hidden world of sanitation and see what it really takes to get food from the plant to your plate. To really get why this invisible battle is so incredibly important, we have to start with a number. This one, 75 million. It's a huge figure, and it really represents the human cost when this battle isn't won. That's right, an estimated 75 million cases of foodborne illness every single year, just in the US. And a huge chunk of those cases comes from poor hygiene practices. That is exactly why the world of industrial sanitation is so intense and so absolutely critical for all of us. So how in the world do you even start to manage something on that massive a scale? Well, you start with the rule books. And in the food industry, that means two very important acronyms, GMPs and SSOPs. Think about it like this. The good manufacturing practices, the GMPs, they're the big picture rules. They're the what. They basically say, hey, you have to make food in a clean environment. Simple enough, right? But the Sanitation Standard Operating Procedures, or SSOPs, that's the how. Those are the super specific written down instructions for each individual plant on how to actually do it. You gotta have both, the big rule and the detailed action plan. Okay, so we've got the rule books. Now let's get down to the factory floor and see how the work actually gets done. One of the most important ideas in this whole thing is the difference between cleaning and sanitizing. I know they sound kind of the same, but in this world, they are two totally different and equally vital steps. So here's the deal. Cleaning is all about getting rid of the visible stuff, the food particles, the grease, the grime. It's the physical removal of all that junk. Sanitizing, on the other hand, is about killing the invisible stuff, the microorganisms. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. You cannot sanitize a dirty surface. It just doesn't work. The sanitizer can't get to the bacteria if it's hiding under a layer of gunk. So cleaning always has to come first. And this isn't just, a quick wipe with a cloth. For places that use a lot of water, it is a highly structured 7-step process. You start by getting the big chunks of stuff off, then you scrape and flush, then you apply the cleaning chemical, rinse it all off, and only then do put on the sanitizer. After that, you dry everything and do inspections and tests to make sure the job's actually done right. It is methodical and you can't skip a single step. One of our sources had this perfect analogy. They said cleaning a surface but then not sanitizing it is like putting on shaving cream and then just walking away without shaving. I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's true. You've done all the prep work, but you skipped the one step that actually gets the job done. Now, you'd think with a process that strict, that would be the end of it, right? Problem solved. But in the microscopic world of sanitation, there's a villain that makes everything much, much harder. It's called the biofilm. And this is the question that probably keeps sanitation managers up at night. Because sometimes, even when you follow all 7 steps perfectly, this hidden enemy can still find a way to stick around. So what is a biofilm? Well, it's basically a fortress for bacteria. It's this invisible, slimy layer that microorganisms literally build for themselves out of leftover food and their own byproducts. It can form in these tiny microscopic scratches on stainless steel, in little cracks on rubber seals, all these places that are incredibly hard to see and even harder to reach. And let me tell you, these biofilms are a nightmare to defeat. The stuff they're made of acts like crazy glue, locking bacteria onto a surface. This shield protects them from sanitizers, a lot of which just can't break through it. And here's the scariest part. If you don't remove every single last bit of that biofilm, the microbes hiding underneath can just grow right back, sometimes even faster than before. It's a persistent, hidden threat. So you're facing down 75 million illnesses and this hidden enemy called a biofilm. How do food plants possibly fight back? Well, they don't just clean, they strategize. They create a full-on sanitation battle plan. At the heart of this whole strategy is something called the Master Cleaning Schedule, or MCS. Now, this is not just a to-do list. It's a super detailed map of the entire plant, and it outlines exactly what needs to be cleaned, how often it needs cleaning, what procedure to use, and who's responsible for doing it and checking it. It makes sure that nothing, from a giant mixing tank down to a tiny floor drain, ever gets forgotten. A huge part of that strategy is thinking in zones. The whole plant is divided up into 4 different areas based on how risky they are for contamination. This map kind of shows the idea. The closer you get to the food itself, the higher the risk, and the tougher the sanitation rules become. So Zone 1, that's ground zero, any surface that physically touches the food. Highest priority, no question. Then as you move out, Zone 2 is the equipment right next to the food. Zone 3 is even farther out. Think floors, drains. And Zone 4 is all the remote spots like hallways and offices. By mapping things out this way, sanitation teams can basically build a defensive perimeter, right? They focus their biggest guns where it matters most to stop a germ from, say, a floor drain in Zone 3 from ever making it to the food in Zone 1.
So winning this battle really comes down to a set of best practices. We're talking about constant monitoring and testing, using simple but brilliant ideas like color-coding your cleaning tools so the brush for raw meat areas never gets used in the cooked food area. It's about being aggressive with moisture, because bacteria need water to grow. And it's about getting rid of high-pressure hoses that can just spray germs all over the place. And maybe most important of all, it's about training, and more training for every single person who walks into that plant.
At the end of the day, the safety of the food on our tables depends on this relentless, invisible battle being won day in and day out. It's a really complex system of science, strategy, and just plain hard work. And it leaves us with one last thought. Every time we go to the grocery store, we're putting our trust in that system. How does knowing the scale of this fight change the way we think about that trust?